has a warm and welcoming atmosphere, perfect for meeting folks, generous hospitality, a fun experience that keeps folks coming back. On South Parkway in Huntsville and Hughes Road in Madison, you're gonna love it. Just Love Coffee Cafe. Eat, drink, love.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Yeah, Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams live from the Rightside Studios. Local, state, national, all the issues. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, today is indeed a Monday, the July the 18th. It is a few minutes after 2 o'clock. Copper is out today, but Kelsey's running that board. Hey, Kelsey, how you doing, man?
Doing well today, Phil.
Hey, appreciate you sitting in. Thank you so much.
Hey, no problem.
And right here locally in the studio, the Rightside Studios, Boomer is on the local board. How you doing, bud?
Doing great. Hey, Alabama.
Most of North Alabama at the very least. I mean, we're like Clinton
right.
to the Tennessee line now.
I was just speaking ahead of the terms.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you prognosticating upon us. All right. Well, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. Hey, tell you what, Kelsey, you get that triple dipper sound effect ready because let me tell y'all what's coming. All right. First of all, 3 o'clock, my friend Matt Clark, who's been on the show many times, but maybe you guys in Birmingham haven't heard him yet. He's the president of the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty, and he's usually got a great legal perspective. He's a constitutional scholar, and there's been some cool things that are happening in the law on conservative positions. So Matt's going to be here to unpack some of that with us at 3 o'clock. And then at 3:30, we're doing a segment. You know, usually we call it Copper and the Birdman. Copper's not here today. But it's going to be Boomer and the Birdman today at 3:30. So stand by for that, getting some perspectives from people who are pretty good at putting them out there. They're not just tech folks. They know things. So, yeah, Boomer and the Birdman at 3:30. In the meantime, I still got a triple dipper. So, Kelsey, hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that we're going to run today's show on. So, yeah, number 1, the Title IX rebuff. All right, so the Biden administration got it handed to them legally. And I love that. I love seeing liberals try and then fail because usually that means good things for conservatives. But, yeah, there's been some interesting developments in the legal world regarding the idea of transgenders competing in women's sports and what that does. And will they be able to continue? Well, we'll talk about that. Title IX rebuff. That's what I'm calling number 1. Number 2, the pain at the pump is the point. That's the name. There's my 3 Ps. The pain at the pump is the point. Do they want you to experience the pain at the pump? Apparently. Apparently that is part of their, means to an end. So, yeah, the pain at the pump is the point in my saying, and that's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. Number 3, I didn't get to it Friday. I'm going to try and get to it today. We got a lot of stuff to do, but I think it's important that we keep this one on the list, Bama Bidenomics. So, yeah, Bama Bidenomics. We're going to talk about what's happening with Bidenomics in general and how's it impacting the state of Alabama. How are you and I faring under the Biden economy? So, Bama Bidenomics, number 3. But listen, you know the deal. I always start the show with what I call the right side way. It's my monologue, basically. And looking at this right now, I got to tell you, the other day I spent some time talking about truth. The fact that in a defamation case, like in the legal world, the old adage is that truth is always the best defense. Well, let me spend some time on how to apply that adage. Because in the legal sense, truth may be your best defense, but if you choose not to pursue it, then what have you accomplished? Because a lie, left unchecked, becomes truth in the minds of some because no one said otherwise. We have to sometimes take the time and put in the effort to flip the script, you know what I mean? We have to actually confront the lie and lay out the truth. As I was thinking this through, I was reminded of something that happened many moons ago in college. It was the University of South Alabama in the mid-'80s, the spring of 1986, if I recall. I was very involved in campus activities, and at the time I was serving as the vice president of student government. And then came a day when this guy showed up on campus going by the name of Brother Jim. And he was an odd bird, man. He professed to be an evangelist of some type. What he really amounted to was a rabble-rouser with a Bible in his hand. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for laying it out strong like John the Baptist, but this guy was not that guy. He was just weird as he stood in the student commons for days and yelled at students, calling them names while waving his Bible in the air, even hissing at them of all things. All the while claiming that God did not love them unless they repented of their evil ways, and he's the one who decided what evil ways were. Meanwhile, his chosen means of spreading the good news of God's love for the world was to demean, belittle, criticize, and just generally act the fool. Not only that, but he just looked like someone who was not right in the head, you know? It was like Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation showed up with a mean streak. And to say it drew a crowd was an understatement. For some of the hundreds who came out daily to hear his diatribes, it was comedy, and to others it was disturbing. To me, it just made me mad. Well, I wanted him gone. In my opinion, he was making a mockery of God. He was absolutely creating the wrong image and portraying nothing of the God who so loved the world that he gave his only son. Well, I talked with campus authorities. The deal came down to the fact that the SGA, the student government, had the authority to request his removal. But he was otherwise not breaking any laws, they said. Okay, well, like I said, I was the vice president of the SGA at the time. And then it ramped up even more, though, when my sweet fiancée, Charlene, who I have now been married to for over 35 years, was walking past the Commons when Brother Jim spotted her wearing something he apparently didn't approve of, and he yelled out, "You hussy!" And he called on her to repent. Never knowing that she already loved the Lord and was already serving as a volunteer leader with Young Life Ministries and changing kids' lives. Well, that did it for me. I got my friend Mike on the line, who was the president of the SGA. And I told him, I said, Mike, we got to do something. He needs to go. To my surprise, Mike refused. He said, and I'm quoting, "Phil, I can't stand him either, but he has a constitutional right to say those things. There's no law being broken here. If we kick him off campus, then who's next?" It doesn't matter how many ill-advised yeah buts that I uttered. Mike held firm, and he would not agree. And then he said something, though, which really struck a chord, one that I've never forgotten. He said, "Phil, if you believe he's wrong, then go out there tomorrow and counter his message. People will listen. You have as much right as he does to speak." Well, I didn't want to. I just wanted him canceled. But I couldn't argue anymore, and Mike was actually right. So I geared up, I prayed up, I studied up. I literally tabbed my own Bible, made notes, studied, and asked for some other folks to give me advice and to be praying at a certain time. And the next day, I was about as nervous as a pig in a bacon factory, but I went to the Commons, and sure enough, there was old Brother Jim. And as he yelled and accused in the name of God, I walked out in front of all those students, several hundred, although it felt like thousands. And I walked up to Brother Jim in front of all of them, and he literally, believe it or not, he like crouched down, pointed his finger at me, and hissed. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, it was weird, man. And I asked the crowd if they wanted to hear what the Bible really had to say about how God feels about us. Well, the crowd went nuts. And so I read a few verses. And then Brother Jim screamed, and then I read some more. And this went on for 10 or 15 minutes, and then Brother Jim just threw his hands up in the air, literally, and he just walked away. If I recall, he left campus. Well, some people said afterwards he was just a guy pulling a stunt, that his whole shtick was designed to get folks to come speak up. I don't think so. I think he had a message that was wrong, but it took a message that was right to counter it. Now, here's why I say all that. I say all that because what I learned that day is that as badly as I want the ranks of conservatism to grow, that it won't ever grow by virtue of a cancel culture attitude. I wanted Brother Jim gone. I wanted him canceled, kaput. My friend Mike reminded me that what was really needed, though, was a healthy dose of truth. That truth is the greatest defense to a lie, but that truth, left untold, is of no value. The truth must make it into the public sphere, into the hearing of others for it to take root and do any good. Now, to be sure, how you present it matters as well. Even the Apostle Paul said he had to come to the point where he knew how to relate to his audience in order to win them over. Not that his message changed, just to make sure that he was presenting it in a way in which his audience could receive it. And oh, by the way, it doesn't mean that you'll persuade everyone. You can get over that idea. There are those who are already entrenched in the lie, or that need the lie, or that benefit from the lie. But there are those who I believe are still in the majority that simply want to know the truth, and it might take you or I speaking it. So what's your platform? Is it your faith? Is it a conservative policy issue? Is it something in politics? I don't know. Maybe you go be a mentor to a single person. Maybe you have a following on a blog or a podcast. Maybe you agree to help lead a small group or work in an advocacy organization of some type. Maybe your job is to assist the person who is the actual voice of the truth by providing them with research or technical support or just inviting others to hear it. All I know is this. I learned that day, and I still believe to this day, that the freedom to be wrong is just as strong in this great nation as the freedom to be right. But in the end, the truth is on the right side. The truth is the side to be on. And if we don't like a message, a cultural shift, or a mantra of the left, then we can either sit back and wait for somebody else to do or say something, or we can speak the truth and see what happens. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. All right, Kelsey, cue us up and let's move us out. But yeah, folks, listen. I believe that with all my heart. That's the way it is. And if we don't speak the truth, speak it in love if you have to, speak it with respect, but speak it nonetheless. If we don't do that, then it's like the lie is going unchecked, and people will never hear what the truth really is. It's up to us, folks. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Glad you guys are with us. By the way, let me just tell you a few things that you need to know to help you navigate all the things that Rightside Radio is up to. So our website, rightsideradio.org, that's like our one-stop shop for everything Rightside. There's a ton of stuff on there. Number one, if you're one of those folks who is like traveling or you're getting outside of the overly broad range of our AM/FM capabilities between our multiple stations in the Huntsville and Birmingham markets, just know this: it don't matter. Everywhere in the big wide world, you go to the World Wide Web, click on rightsideradio.org, and go to the Listen Live tab. And I always say, no matter where you is, there we is. So there's that. And we'd love to have you. We have people that call in from their vacation, like from the beach and stuff. Like Jeff from Indiana called in one day. He was down at the beach. Just love that. So here's a guy from Indiana calling us from the Gulf Shores beach. Okay, got it. Glad of it. But yeah, a lot of stuff's happening besides that on that website. Number one, we write weekly. There's a published op-ed that came out just today, as a matter of fact. My latest piece is out today. Published by several periodicals around the state. We always post them there on that website. And right now, one of the coolest things is, and Boomer's sitting here running the board on this, is we are now telecasting. What do I call this, Boomer? I'm live streaming. I'm sorry, bring me to the 21st century. Boomer just gives me that look like, Phil, it's live streaming. Okay, sorry. The old man. I don't know. I just want to know if I push the little button, I'll talk to somebody. That's what I want to know. But yeah, So the live streaming is now. You can see the inner workings, the inner sanctum, if you will, of the new Rightside studio, and loving it here as we overlook the golf course. Man, this is just a cool location. At least give me a thumbs up on that, Boomer. Cool location. Bam, double thumbs up. All right, thank you. Other stuff on that website though. Podcasting is going bananas. I think we're well over 63,000 downloads, approaching 64. And just having a good time, man. Who knew? Well, I tell you what, it's because of y'all. The fact that we are now syndicated across a better half of the northern part of our state, really a little more. If I've measured on the map, geographically speaking, we might be slightly more than half the state. But yeah, somewhere around Clanton, all the way to the Tennessee line, from Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden. We've got the ability to even reach into sectors of Mississippi and Tennessee and Georgia, and then our podcast is still. Have you got the stats for the podcast up there right now? You do? I do. Yeah. So grab that mic. All right. Where's our second big? Is it still California? Our second biggest audience? Can you find that? Boomer's pulling it up. 1 second. We got the stats on the podcast. It's craziness. Like for months now, the locations have been our second biggest audience has been California. Oh, I see it. Oh, come on.
It is California.
What? Like there's hundreds of people out there download. I don't get it, but okay. Hello, California. We love you.
Ooh,
so
but
what?
a close second is Ohio.
A close second is Ohio?
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Ohio.
Okay, I
Come
love
on, Tennessee, you're right behind them.
Tennessee, what are you doing? Catch up. All right, lots of stuff happening on that website, but we're having fun with this, and I say it all the time, but I mean it with all sincerity, folks. It's y'all that do this. I mean, we're having fun. I got great tech folks like Kelsey's running the board there in Huntsville. We got Big Dave running the board down there for us in Birmingham. Thank you, Big Dave. And then Boomer's sitting right here, and you can't do without them. But the reality is, none of it matters if y'all don't listen. And so that's the biggest kick I get is just knowing that there are folks who are wanting to tune in, and I'm glad. I'm more than glad. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here like they say on "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" just being paid to talking to a can. You ever see "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou"? Have you seen that?
Oh yes.
I mean, do you like that movie? Please tell me you like it.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Charlene can't stand it. I know.
Soggy Bottom Boys.
Soggy Bottom Boys. There's a Soggy Bottom Boys.
Dapper Dan.
I'm a Dapper Dan man. I don't want fop. I'm a Dapper Dan man. I could quote that movie all day long. Every once in a while, somebody on my team, when things would go bad over in Baghdad, one of my guys would go, "Come on in, fellers. The water's fine." That was just a moment there. All right, now I'm just opining for no reason. Hey, listen, folks, on today's show, we've got some things we're going to cover. So, yeah, let me get down to business. Number one is I'm going to this Title IX rebuff. And when I say that, what I'm saying is, the transgender agenda right now is make no mistake, by the way. I mean, to see the way things are in the news and on commercials and with Biden's appointments to people in office and in executive positions of privilege, and even the guy the other day, what's his name? Sam Brenton, who is now just got his top secret security clearance to be the Undersecretary of Department of Energy over our nuclear systems, is a long-standing transgender activist and drag queen and advocates for strange things and teaches classes on kinkiness, and it's weird. Anyway, and he's very proud. All that to say, to watch all this happening and to see culture going the way it is, at least in terms of being thrust in our faces, you would think that suddenly the rest of us are in the minority. Like, okay, it must be that straight folks are suddenly like the 25% of the nation? It's no. Listen, a recent study by the Pew Institute, I believe it was Pew, came back and said that less than 1% of the nation, less than 1% identifies as transgender. Less than 5% even identifies as homosexual. And by the way, I'm not sitting here, by the way, by me saying that, some of the activist mentalities would immediately take offense. He can't talk like that. Why can't I? All I did was tell you what the studies say. I didn't tell you anything. I didn't even demean anybody. I didn't call anybody a name. I just said, you know what? They're not in the majority, and they're not. But you would think with the rush to activism that we're seeing by woke corporations and by the Biden administration and by the push from media that somehow or another things have shifted. Well, some of the push is now being pushed back on, and I'm thankful. And a big decision came out of a federal district court in Tennessee. East Tennessee stepped up here recently. Federal district court recently rebuffed the Biden administration on issues related to transgender activism that impacts female sports. So we're going to break that down here in a few minutes. We're going to talk about some of the things that are happening there. You know why? Because I'm not afraid to talk about it. And if you want to call in, you're welcome to. I'll take those calls. The number is 866-494-9866. I know we're up against a break right now. I expect to hear the music any second. But when we get back from this break, we're going to kick off that particular segment. Number one, the Title IX rebuff. But it goes to a bigger issue. Are we in the majority? Yes, we are. And oh, by the way, just because they're in the minority doesn't mean they get everything they want. We have to be careful with the sway, and they're asking for things they shouldn't have been asking for. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Sitting here drinking a cup of Just Love coffee in the Rightside studio, talking to you guys. Hey, listen, so number one of the Triple Dipper, I'm calling it the Title IX rebuff, but let me set the stage a little more. I was talking about the fact just before the break that when it comes to the LGBTQ2IA+, I don't know how many acronyms there are now, when it comes to the entire agenda that's like being just like force-fed on the American public right now. And I don't mean like a little bit. I mean, how many of y'all are just watching commercials, and if you've got small kids in the room, you're wondering, do I mute the commercial? What do I do? It can be virtually anything, but yeah, Boomer's nodding his head. You have small kids. You know the deal. It's just unreal.
You just don't know what's going to pop up.
I mean, sometimes the commercials are worse than TV.
Oh, yeah.
Or worse than movies, like PG-13 commercials. When did that happen?
Oh, man, I have no clue. And even on the streaming devices, those commercials there, you have just no clue what's going to pop up.
Oh, yeah, and you stream to get away from TV, but then you're stuck with the fact that they've now embedded commercials into streaming.
Oh, I know.
All right, well, okay. They're getting our money somehow, right? But so bottom line is this. There's still a whole lot more folks out there who are trying to figure out why that's an agenda than those who are actually wanting the agenda. Don't mistake the fact that the squeaky wheel is there to mean that the squeaky wheel is the only wheel. So I would say this. There are aspects of what I would call let's go with the transgender agenda, all right? Let's go. The trans agenda is beginning to crumble under its own weight right now. Things are happening and people are going, you know what? Stop it. Stop with the foolishness. Stop with the madness. No, women cannot get pregnant. I'm sorry. Well, back up and let me.
Whoops.
Yeah, Boomer, you can just go ahead and mute that one off the soundtrack. So, no, men cannot get pregnant.
There we go.
Thank you. I'm well aware of biology. I'm not a biologist, but I do know the answer to that question. But no, men cannot get pregnant. And no, men should not be competing in women's sports. And no, men should not be incarcerated in women's prisons. Oh, now, Phil, women's prisons? Well, let me read you a story. Came off of Fox News, July 17th, which would be yesterday. Let me read the headline. Just the headline alone will probably send some of you guys into eye rolling. You ready? New Jersey transgender woman transferred from women's only prison after impregnating 2 inmates. Okay. Let me read it again. See if you can absorb all that at one time. Boomer did roll his eyes, so it definitely had the effect I thought it would. New Jersey transgender woman transferred from women's only prison after impregnating 2 inmates. First of all, that was not a woman. That was a man who was put into a woman's prison, claiming to be a woman, who then, oh, by the way, got 2 female inmates pregnant, because that's how biology works. So storyline says a transgender woman incarcerated at a women's-only prison in New Jersey has been moved to another facility after impregnating 2 female inmates earlier this year. Demi Minor is how the person goes. Demi Minor, 27, was transferred last month from the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility in Clinton to the Garden State Youth Correctional Facility. Oh, good. Oh, good. Let's transfer them to a youth correctional facility. That makes great sense. 27-year-old criminal incarcerated, claiming to be transgender, gets 2 other inmates pregnant, and then they transfer them to a correctional facility for young adult offenders. Wonderful. It says Minor's move came after a local paper reported in April that it appeared that 2 women at the last facility that she was at became pregnant after consensual sexual relationships with another incarcerated person. That would be him, her, whatever. In 2021, New Jersey enacted a policy to allow prisoners to be housed according to their gender identity. Yeah, that was destined to fail. That's what you call setting things. That's what you call being an idiot in a position of making decisions about public policy. Well, setting the stage for that's sports. I mean, that's prison. But what about sports? What about other parts of life? What about things that actually? I mean, so the majority of people listening to this show are probably not in prison. You're probably not impacted by that. You may think it's foolish. You're also not really impacted because it's New Jersey tax dollars that are going to pay for those children to become wards of the state, which they will. But how about what's going on in the realm of sports? I'm sure all of you have seen the stories about the guy who now goes by Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas is a swimmer for the University of Pennsylvania who, after swimming on the men's swim team for several years, decided that it was time for him to be a woman and began dominating that side of women's sports. Dominating. Like, not even a little bit, like dominating that aspect of women's sports. A man who had the strength and the physical capabilities of a male swimmer beating women who had worked all their lives to have the right to compete at that level, that Division I level, who are now watching their hopes and dreams be crushed because idiots who make rules could not step aside for a second, look at the demands of the transgender agenda and say, that's really not a good idea. Well, so here we are. And let's go ahead and make it a little more insulting, if we will. Story again. This actually, you know what? All four of my stories I've got in my hand right now came from Fox News. That's interesting. But I've got another one up on the screen that came from Reuters, so I'll go there in a minute. Leah Thomas, according to Fox News, dated this past Friday, Leah Thomas was nominated by the University of Pennsylvania to be the NCAA Woman of the Year. According to an announcement from the NCAA, the University of Pennsylvania nominated the transgender athlete for the award, which recognizes female student athletes. Established in 1991, the award recognizes female student athletes who have exhausted their eligibility and distinguished themselves in their community in athletics and in academics throughout their college careers. Yeah, okay. Leah Thomas, a former swimmer now at the University of Pennsylvania, won the 500-yard freestyle event at the 2022 NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships. And created a national debate. Yes, she did. Well, not everybody is sitting still on this. Not everybody is thinking this is a great thing, especially those who have to compete against Leah Thomas, especially those who spent their entire. And by the way, I knew a girl in high school who was a competitive swimmer, and she was like, she had already been to the pool and swum her I don't know how many laps, how many miles she had to swim every single morning, and then got home in time to get ready to come to school while I was sloughing my way out of bed and walking in the door right before the bell rang at Grissom High School. I mean, literally, just like sloughing across the street in a T-shirt and barely making it while she's already, like, laid it on and gotten everything done, and was also, by the way, an ultimate scholar, the curve buster in all the classes. And you talk about self-discipline. Well, that's what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. And there are young girls right now who are training with the dreams and aspirations of being a gold medalist. There are young females right now who are training and working hard to compete in a realm of sport that takes discipline and practice and the ability to be a team member. And, oh, by the way, the competitive mindset to go for it at every single turn, only to have someone set the stage and create failure for them. It's one thing to create competition. I get it. It's another thing to create failure. There's a big difference. And by saying that men are allowed to dominate women's sports is like saying, I'm sorry, women, you don't matter as much. It's important for us to consider that one person's feelings who has decided that he is something that he is biologically not. Well, Riley Gaines is a former Kentucky swimming star, and she has now slammed the nomination of Leah Thomas as the NCAA Woman of the Year. Story again off of Fox. My resources are usually spread out all over the place. These are all coming from Fox. July 17th, yesterday, Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines slammed the University of Pennsylvania's decision to nominate Leah Thomas for the NCAA's Woman of the Year award. Thomas, who is transgender, became the first trans woman to win titles at the Ivy League and NCAA championships. Gaines tweeted her opinion, saying the NCAA is making the highest award in collegiate athletics worthless. Well, I don't disagree. You're sucking the life right out of it. Here's her quote. Being the real girl in that photo and also a University of Kentucky nominee for NCAA's Woman of the Year, this is yet another slap in the face to women. First, a female national title, and now nominated for the Pinnacle Award in collegiate athletics. The NCAA has made this award worthless. This award combines athletic performance with academics, service, and character. What character has Thomas shown other than sheer selfishness and entitlement? The disrespect and disregard for the other female athletes in Thomas's interviews is eye-opening. Well, listen. Thomas was sanctioned, though. That's the problem. Because FINA, the organization that governs international swimming, voted to approve new policies for transgender swimmers. And that gender inclusion policies, it only permits swimmers who transition prior to the age of 12. Okay. In other words, they had to have suffered through some form of activism by the parents, I guess. But I'm just telling you, folks, that's wrong. That is next layer wrong. All right, well, listen, I'm saying all that to set a stage. That's Title IX. Title IX is the law of the nation that governs things to include female athletics. In a minute, we're going to come back from this break. Kelsey, you can go ahead and move us to the break, but in a minute, we're going to come back from this break. I'm going to fill you in on what the Biden administration tried to do and what a court just said the Biden administration could not do. And I'm so glad of it. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back with a little Boston jamming right there. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So I'm calling this segment the Title IX rebuff because the Biden administration got rebuffed. And by the way, coming up top of the hour to kind of wrap this conversation up with me is my friend Matt Clark. He's the president and lead attorney at the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. They do great work going after issues on constitutional law and the infringement of rights by government and others on people's lives here in Alabama. They've had some amazing lawsuits here of late. And so, yeah, Matt's going to come on at 3 o'clock and talk about a little bit of this. But let me just tell you some things that have happened here recently. So June 23rd, less than a month ago, story on Reuters. Here's one that I got. There's off of Fox. But story on Reuters is that the Biden administration proposed expanding Title IX. Title IX provides a number of things that protect female athletics along with other things in the law. But let me focus in on that aspect of it. Title IX protections against sex discrimination and things like that, and also providing for, in the world of female athletics, that there will be equality across the board. If you have, for instance, it's very common to say that under Title IX, if your college or high school has facilities for male sports, you have to provide equal level of facilities for female sports. The quality has to be the same. You can't underfund and leave something hanging just because you make more money off of male sports. And, there's no female football team, so you're not going to have two stadiums. But you can imagine that a baseball team and a softball team, both at the same school, they have to be given the same level of authority. You have to have coaching. You have to have the ability for facilities, for training, all those things. Well, the Biden administration was proposing expanding Title IX protections against sex discrimination to include transgender students. And it was part of what they called their broader effort to replace Trump-era rules that it said had weakened safeguards for sex harassment. No, they weren't trying to change Trump's rules on sex harassment. They were trying to institute new rules for transgenders to be able to compete in the sport that's not aligned with their biological sex. So the proposed changes came out through the U.S. Department of Education, which, by the way, craziness on this. I don't know if you saw this. I just saw the headline. Haven't read it yet, but Betsy DeVos, who was Trump's Secretary of Education, has called for the Department of Education just to be disbanded altogether. I don't know that I have any problem with that. Anyway, that's a total aside. But the proposed changes announced by the U.S. Education Department came on the 50th anniversary. Right at the 50th anniversary of Title IX. They were aimed at K-12 schools and higher ed that get federal funds, which is most of them. Because if you think about it, they can track federal funds to almost everything now. I literally, I was listening just yesterday to our pastor talking about the fact that an Institute of Learning that our church maintains and supports takes no federal funds for the very reason that they did not want to have to, go after policies, I would imagine. He didn't say it this way, but be forced to go after policies that did not align with the teachings of the church, of the Bible. Because the Trump administration, the Biden administration is going to say, if we give you money, you have to do our stuff. Well, that's what they were saying. And by the way, even down to elementary schools, getting federal funds for free and reduced lunches. Federal funds. And they use that now as a stick. So, the Title IX revamp, as you call it, was literally trying to say that transgenders should be allowed to use the bathrooms of their choice, the locker rooms of their choice, play the sports of their choice, regardless of whether they're in line with their biological sex, all to the detriment of anybody else who might be offended, concerned, or feel like they had a lack of security. Now listen, I'm the guy who, when I was in the state Senate, I was the one who actually floated what they called the bathroom bill. And by the way, it created a firestorm. And people said, I even had one local talk show host in Birmingham who's a friend of mine who literally on the air with me just began to chew me out and say, you're just trying to find you got a solution in search of a problem. This is not even a problem here. Well, guess what? How you like me now? Because I had the bill. At the same time, it was becoming a thing with you had places like Target and other stores that were deciding they were going to start, having transgender bathrooms. And it was offensive. Well, did you know that under Alabama law that we have a right to security under the law? You have a right to the safety and security, and that goes into the places in which you should feel like you have a right to privacy, which would include things like your bathrooms or locker rooms. That even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was still sitting on the Supreme Court, she herself, as liberal as she was, said the idea of safety and security in the bathrooms is indeed sacrosanct, and the idea that we're going to wind up having these transgender bathrooms is a misnomer. I'm paraphrasing, but that's roughly what she said. However, the Biden administration is pushing forward. They're determined they're going to get their way. They're determined to institute the most activist of agendas and then hold the federal funds hostage that feed kids at schools. It would require schools that receive federal funding to respond promptly to complaints of sexual discrimination, to include those who believe they were denied the right to use a bathroom that did not align with their sex, for boys and men to play in female sports. And I'm just going to tell you, not only did it weaken due process rights, it also went into things that should never be allowed to undermine female athletics. It was taking away everything that Title IX had done over the years to build up female athletics. Well, guess what? It went to court. Guess what? Right off the bat, we see a federal district court judge in East Tennessee step up to the plate and say, you know what? No. Storyline here, off Fox again. Storyline here, a judge blocks Biden admin's transgender school bathrooms rules and athletes. A federal judge has blocked a directive from President Joe Biden's administration that allowed transgender workers and students to use school restrooms matching their gender identities. It also allowed transgender athletes to join sports teams corresponding with their chosen genders. The directive was blocked by Judge Charles Ashley of the Eastern District of Tennessee. Thank you, Southern District Courts. A Trump appointee after a coalition. By the way, say what you want about President Trump, but his appointments to the court system, Supreme Court on down, have been a saving grace, man. I'm telling you, I liked a lot of his policies, period. I mean, literally, I find myself having a hard time disagreeing with most anything that came out of Trump's public policies, but his appointments to the court, I think, is going to be the biggest part of his legacy. 20 Republican, tone it down a little bit, Kelsey. 20 Republican attorneys general sued last year. And Judge Ashley agreed with them, saying in his opinion, the states cannot continue regulating their state laws while complying with these defendants' guidance. Well, coming up next, we got my friend Matt Clark from the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty, who's going to unpack that with us in more detail. Where does this go? Is this nationwide? Was it just in Tennessee? Was Alabama involved in this lawsuit? Come on now. We'll talk about it when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Right Side Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live from the Rightside Studios. Local, state, national, all the issues. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, we're going to go to the phones here in just 1 second. As we finished up that last portion right before the break, I told you guys that in the end of June, I believe it was, the Biden administration came out with a new executive order. They thrust it out there to the public arena by virtue of the Department of Education. And it was a directive that was supposed to be designed to do a number of things related to sexual harassment, but in the midst of it all, they included transgender workers and students being allowed to use school restrooms that matched their gender identities, and also, by the way, for participation in athletics that does not necessarily align with the biological sex of the person, meaning that, again, males could dominate women's sports. Well, the directive was just blocked by Judge Charles Atchley of the Eastern District of Tennessee after a coalition of roughly 20 Republican attorney generals sued. And so in that regard, we now have an order from the court that says basically you cannot continue doing this. It disallows the states to move forward to enforce their own laws because they're simultaneously being forced to have to comply with federal laws, or at the very least, with federal guidance. Well, that being said, let me bring on somebody who is far more of an expert in the realm of constitutional law and civil liberties. Matt Clark is the president of the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. He has a great track record, having worked previously for the Alabama Supreme Court. We brought him on at the Alabama Policy Institute not long ago to take over the lead of the new Center for Law and Liberty, where he has done an amazing job. So with that being said, I'll bring him on now. Matt Clark, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Well, hey, I appreciate you making some time today. This new suit and this, not new suit, but this new order from Judge Atchley in Tennessee, what are your thoughts, man? Does this really stop the case? Is this injunctive relief? Does it kind of put a temporary hold on the enforcement of the order? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it is definitely going to put a temporary hold on the Biden administration's plan. So you and I know what the judge granted is called a preliminary injunction, and for the non-lawyers listening here, what that means is that that this is not a final order, but sometimes while a court is trying to figure out an issue, it can issue an order saying, while I'm trying to figure this out, here's what we're going to do, and that's exactly what a preliminary injunction is. So in this case, the court did not make a final decision on the merits yet, but it's looking at the evidence and it's saying, okay, while I'm trying to figure this out, right now it's looking to me like the states that brought the suit are entitled to some relief while we're still fighting about this. So for now, I'm going to block the Biden administration from enforcing this and imposing this on the states that don't want anything to do with the Biden administration's actions. So in theory, if you get a preliminary injunction, it can be reversed later in the lawsuit, but it rarely happens. Trying to think of it in football terms for the non-lawyers in the audience, like you're playing in a football game. It's the fourth quarter, and your team gets a touchdown with about a minute left. Now the other team gets the ball back. They got a minute to drive the ball down the field. But how often do you actually get that touchdown tied up? It's not that often. So things are looking pretty good for us right now.
Yeah, and typically speaking, you have to also prove to the court's satisfaction that you have a reasonable expectation of prevailing on the merits of the case later for them to issue the preliminary injunction to keep things status quo for the time being, right?
Bingo. Yeah, that's exactly why it's a good sign for us, because typically you got to show that you have a strong chance of succeeding in the end. So if you don't make that strong showing, you don't get the injunction. So the fact that we got it now means that the judge is thinking we are going to win this. So that's very, very good.
Well, I mean, the case was actually right now is currently being resolved in the Eastern District of Tennessee. But there were 20 Republican attorney generals who signed on to this case. I'm assuming that Alabama was one of those. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're right. So Steve Marshall was one of the attorney generals who signed on. So Alabama is in on the case. And so what the judge's order means is that the Biden administration right now is blocked from enforcing this program here in Alabama. So we don't have to let girls into boys' bathrooms or vice versa or any of the other wacky things that the Biden administration wants to do through this.
Well, that's yeah, and you look at this, and somewhere along the line, you would hope that somebody would say, "How about we let a little common sense, rule here?" But apparently, we have to take common sense to court with the Biden administration at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is insane. The left's mantra for years used to be tolerance, and tolerance means I leave you alone, you leave me alone, and each of us get to do what we want, regardless of whether the other person is happy about it or not. Now it's not just with things like transgender folks, like, hey, leave us alone, let us pick our own names, let us dress how we want. Now it's I'm a biological male. I get to come into a shower room with females, and the females just have to put up with it. They shouldn't have to put up with that, especially given the very real potential for sexual assault in such situations. So you're right, Phil. Common sense dictates this is a common sense safety measure. Nobody's really infringing on your right here to hold yourself out how you want to be perceived, but there are limits on that. And there's a very common sense limitation.
Yeah, and I before you came on the air, to sort of lay the foundation for this segment, I started off with the fact that in New Jersey, just this weekend, a biological male who identifies now as a woman was put in a female prison and then now had to be transferred out because he got 2 of the other female inmates pregnant, which tells you everything right there. And so you look at it and go, okay, somewhere along the line, someone just didn't believe that was really going to happen, and it did. And that kind of harassment you're talking about, that kind of potential for devastating sexual harassment could occur right there with a sanctioned entry into a locker room that shouldn't have ever been sanctioned in the first place.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Phil. It's as I've been trying to debate this with people and with liberals who are for this, one common question I get from them is, well, where's the evidence that this is going to happen? And I'm assuming they want things like studies or statistics. And I said, okay, listen, there's some things that are so self-evident that we haven't tried them yet, but we just know it's going to go badly. For instance, I don't think there are any studies on there about how often you're going to get shocked if you stick a paperclip in an outlet, or how often it's going to go badly for you if you decide to drink a gallon of gasoline. We haven't tried these because we know in advance this is going to go poorly. And so here, you have to be, I mean, I'm sorry, but you just have to be absolutely blind to see that, or to not see that this is coming. Now, does that mean that every person that holds him or herself out as transgender is going to engage in instances of sexual assault or voyeurism? No, of course not. But there are going to be plenty of people that take the opportunity. All they have to say is, I'm transgender, and now they have access to their victims and can do whatever they want to them. So, yes, we should see that this is coming, and it's absolute madness to just stick our heads in the sand and pretend that this isn't a real danger.
Well, yeah, you're right, and right now, what I think is being lost in all of this are the rights of those who are potentially offended. Not the offended as in terms of I'm a transgender and I want access to that locker room because I say so. What about everybody else? Because I mentioned the fact that years ago when I was in the state Senate, I was the only one who was able to or willing to carry a bathroom bill that dealt with this issue before it became the hot button that it is now. I was laughed at. I was told that it was a solution looking for a problem, and well, here we are now. But the reality is, even back then, I did the legal study on it and found that under Alabama law, the citizenry of the state has a actual right to security. They have a right to the idea of privacy and security within their own selves, and the right to not feel threatened. And this can create that. And the idea that we just blow that off and pretend that it's just you just suck it up, that's just wrong in itself because that violates the rights of those who are being infringed upon.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Phil. Two comments on that. Number one, I remember back when you were a state senator and you introduced that. I was working at the Foundation for Moral Law at the time, and I remember coming to your office and meeting with you and Rich Hobson to thank you for that. That was my first time meeting you, so thanks for having the foresight to even do that back then. The second thing, you're absolutely right. I think it's even the U.S. Supreme Court, or even if it's not the U.S. Supreme Court, it's the lower federal appellate courts have held that you do have a right to things like not being seen naked, especially by somebody of the opposite sex. And so we're not trying to invent a new right here that hasn't existed. No, on the contrary, we recognize that this has existed for a very long time. And so here we're just, we're asserting a very old and very commonsensical defense, which is that people shouldn't have to be subject to this. So, and that's inevitably going to offend some people, but I'm sorry, in society, sometimes people need to be offended in order to avoid a greater harm, and that's what we have going on here.
Well, so Matt, as we wrap up our time together, let me ask you this. I mean, this was a presidential executive direction here. It did not have the full force of law, but it was being regulated into law. But I assume, though, that this particular court ruling has a nationwide impact. This injunction is nationwide. Am I correct?
I've been looking over that. I'm not sure if it's nationwide, but what I do know is that it applies in the 20 states where the AG is sued, and Alabama is one of them. So
okay.
We're looking at least 20 states here where the Biden administration is barred from enforcing what it wants to do. So maybe not exactly nationwide, but it still has a pretty big impact.
Well, once again, I think that one of Trump's greatest legacies is going to be the appointments he made to every aspect of the court systems, and that's playing out right now, right before our very eyes.
I agree with you completely. For a long time, we've been longing for judges that abhor the practice of making up new rights as they go along, but instead are going to be faithful to uphold the Constitution, to uphold the laws of the United States, and to let the people or their representatives make any necessary changes. And Trump really did restack a lot of vacancies in the judiciary with judges that are committed to that philosophy. So we're seeing the fruit of that, and I say thank God for it.
Absolutely. Well, man, totally agree with you. Hey, Matt, good commentary as always. I tell you what, before we go, tell people where they can find out more about you if they want to.
Thanks, Phil. So if you go to alabamalawandliberty.org, that's our website. You can check out our cases, can find ways to get involved and donate if you feel so inclined. And then we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Law and Liberty AL. That's our handle.
All right, man. Matt Clark, we appreciate you. As always, we'll have you back on again sometime soon, but thanks for being in the fight.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil. Same to you, brother.
All right. All right, well, listen, Kelsey, go ahead and move us to the break. We'll take that break right now. We'll come back and sort of wrap this segment up, and then we'll go down to the bottom of the half hour, and we'll have Boomer and the Birdman. I enjoy that segment. That's just good times. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. Hey, Kelsey, you have no idea how many times last week I flubbed coming back because I've been saying my usual intro with WVNN the whole time, and now I'm having to say this kind of neutral thing. But yeah. Anyway, Copper would say Phil. Anyway, I got it right. So yeah, hey, we are back, and listen, that last segment there, ending it up with Matt Clark. That is, and by the way, Matt Clark is doing an amazing job, and so I would encourage you, do check him out, Alabama Center for Law and Liberty. It's amazing to watch what can happen when someone, like I said earlier in my monologue, when someone is willing to go and just say, here's the truth, here's what needs to, and provides another means for people to have their voice. Well, sometimes the court system is where you have to have your voice, and we're seeing that right now. Thus far, because liberals currently control the House, the Senate, the executive, well, we have a conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Can you imagine what will be happening, all you right side ruffians out there? Can you imagine what will be happening if we did not have the court right now? I mean, just the things that we fought for years, like the right to life and the repeal or the overturning of Roe v. Wade. What an amazing thing to watch that happening. What an amazing thing to watch that happening. But we're also seeing so much going on right now in the realm of things like vaccine mandates. And in this case, transgender bathroom policy. Who knew that we would have to be in this place right now when the world is stood on its head? So if you're watching on live stream right now, you're watching me almost try to find words. It's amazing to me that we are at this place where, it's almost getting to the point of biblical proportions. The seasons don't know their place. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. You know what I'm saying? When do the plagues of locusts come in is what I want to know. No time soon, I hope. But nonetheless, the only way to combat this is to proceed with the fight for truth. The very idea that the most recently appointed justice to the Supreme Court is now sitting on the Supreme Court after not being able to answer the question, what is a woman? Wow. So, yeah, that's where we are. And it is incumbent upon us to consider at all times that we have to keep our head on a swivel, that we have to keep our powder dry, if you know what I'm saying. We have to be willing at all times to speak out, to go ahead and to say what's needed to be said, because they're going to continue this fight on their side, on the left. We have to be willing to take the fight up on the right. So we cannot sit still on this, is what I'm saying. I got a caller on line 5. Go ahead and highlight the name, Kelsey. Whenever the person's ready to go on, you just highlight the name for me, and I'll grab it. But yeah, okay, good. Line 5, Sparky. Hey, it's Sparky from Harvest. Sparky, how you doing today, man?
Hey, Phil, great show today.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, you're right. You have to continue to speak truth, very calm, logically, and hopefully not a very far partisan manner. You have to speak truth to power and truth to liberals who, for some reason, have embraced the ideologies of the current regime in power. And I've found that I can effectively communicate with many friends and family members who are very, very, very far left when I'm measured and I'm speaking in simple truths that don't sound like antagonistic, accusatory, us against them, me against you politics, but rather simple, plain truth. And it's I don't know. It feels like there's a strange feeling in the air right now where a lot of people who are traditionally far left are starting to see the full fruition of what Barack Obama's people didn't manage or didn't try to achieve in their first term, and now under their puppet Joe Biden are completely going hog wild with the insane anti-capitalist, anti-Judeo-Christian, full-blown socialist woke nonsense. But I'm seeing more and more people on the far left going, man, I'm rejecting this. This doesn't even make any sense anymore.
Yeah, and you look at it, it's almost like a desperation. Like, oh no, we may not get it if we don't try to get it all at one time. And it's like they're just grabbing hold of as much as they can possibly get, and they have no sense of measure about how they approach things. They just go at it full bore, and it's like they literally don't believe if they do it today, they don't do it today, it won't happen tomorrow. Is what it looks like.
Well, and there's a good reason for that. And of course, you've heard me say before. I mean, there could indeed be a red wave in November, but I would caution everybody listening: there'll never be a red wave if you get complacent thinking that it's automatic and it's going to happen without you. If every conservative, every independent, if every right-thinking, right-side ruffian doesn't get to the polls in staggeringly large numbers, there will not be a victory in November, because, as I recall, going into Barack Obama's second time, and when he was reelected, that was eminently winnable for the Republicans and the conservatives.
Yeah.
They got complacent because Obama's first term had been such a disaster. They thought there's no way in the world this guy's going to win.
Yeah.
And they didn't show up. The conservatives and the Republicans didn't show up in great enough numbers. We cannot let that happen again. Absolutely cannot let that happen.
Man, you were
Point in history, no way.
You were spot on, Sparky. Spot on as always, man. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for the call. And by the way, he is so good, Boomer. He's so good at putting words into the situations. I mean, Sparky could almost host this show. I mean, not almost. Sparky could. I got so many right side ruffians out there that could literally do a better job at hosting the show. It's just amazing.
Oh, I was so impressed just with his words. I was just over here nodding my head, thinking he was in the room with me. I'm like, yes.
Well, folks, you know, and Sparky made a great point. It's like 1 Peter 3:15 says, "Be ready at all times to give an accounting for the faith that is in you, but do so with gentleness and respect." Well, you can extend that even beyond the realm of faith. Why do you believe in certain conservative principles? Be willing to explain it, know how to explain it, but do so in a way that they can receive it. And I'm just telling you, speak that truth, man. All right, coming up next, we got Boomer and the Birdman. We'll see how that goes. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Rightside Radio, Phil Williams sitting here in the studio, the Rightside studio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. All right, we're going to go to something that I just thoroughly enjoy doing. I've got amazing folks that work with me. I mean, I get to sit here and just talk, and it's Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. It's really not. It's Phil Williams. It's Boomer. It's Copper. It's Alicia, who's in the office answering the phones. It's basically a team. And so I just appreciate that. Well, listen, they got opinions too, right? So we do this thing once or twice a week where I've got other folks that come on and we just talk and we share questions back and forth. And, sometimes we don't even always agree entirely, but we love each other nonetheless. But nonetheless, I've got great folks. And so let me go ahead and just double check we got a good clean feed connection to Birdman. Birdman, you there?
Howdy, guys.
Hey, all right, Birdman. So Birdman, for those of y'all that don't know him, he's the guy that keeps everything running in the outhouse. So he does all the social media, the podcasting, the website maintenance, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, Birdman's with us. And, of course, right here in the studio, we got the Boomer with us right now.
Hey, what's up, Birdman?
Hey.
What's up, brother?
All right, so, fellas, I got you guys on the hook here. Let me get some questions up. I got my list ready, prepared. I did have it ready. So there's plenty of things going on right now in the news, but the ones that really caught my attention, let me go with this one first. I know you're both gun guys. Boomer's just nodding his head. I know who Birdman is. He's definitely a gun guy. But so here's the deal. You guys probably saw it this weekend. A concealed carry gun owner took down a shooter in an Indiana mall. This shooter came into the food court at a mall in Indianapolis, apparently killed 3 people. He brought a long gun, had like 3 or more magazines ready to reload with. I don't know to what level of training or experience he had with firearms, but nonetheless, he was already killing people. And a patron, just a guy who was there to go shopping or whatever, was carrying and took down the perpetrator. So let me ask you this. Your thoughts on civilians interceding in criminal events. Birdman, you first.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole reason why those of us that conceal carry. This is where the good guy with the gun argument really comes into play. And furthermore, this is one of those things that if you are of the mind to carry a gun, this is one of those situations that you pray to God you're never in, but you also pray to God that if you are in it, you'll handle it in the way he did. And I think this reminds me a lot of the Texas shooting from that older gentleman who said the exact same thing. You hate hearing this kind of thing happen, you hate seeing it happen, but you thank the Lord when somebody is willing to step up and put their lives on the line. And that's exactly what this guy did.
Yeah. Yeah. Boomer, what are your thoughts, man? So this thing happened in Indianapolis. What do you think?
Well, first off, I just want to say good for him. He did exactly what all concealed carry people should do. I mean, I pray that I would do the same thing in that situation. That's what I trained for. That's why I conceal carry.
Yeah. And here we are in Alabama. I mean, you're not even required to have a concealed carry permit now. But the interesting thing is, in this particular case, I don't know if you saw it, but the mall owner came out and said, technically he was breaking our rules by he was not supposed to have a firearm in the mall. Boomer.
I just shake my head to that. I mean, good for him for doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know why they would actually come out and say that.
You look at that and go, okay, so you would rather he didn't and there were more people dead? What are you saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Birdman?
Yeah.
Alabama laws.
What's that? Birdman?
Thank God for Alabama laws.
Yeah.
Carry
Yes.
no weight unless it's a state or federal building.
It's exactly right. And there are some exclusionary potentials within Alabama law, but you're right. A mall is not one of them. And so, all right. This is, for those of you that hadn't already figured it out, this is a gun-friendly environment. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, you are.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
All right. Radio show hosted by an airborne ranger with 2 other guys that are big gun guys. It's hard to find a more Second Amendment friendly show to listen to. All right, let me switch gears. Dr. Fauci. The much loved Dr. Fauci, the one who I've been saying for quite some time, is probably the worst public spokesman that's ever been thrust upon the audiences of the nation. Dr. Fauci just announced today, I think it was, that he's going to retire before the next president takes office. So regardless of who gets elected, and by the way, I'm praying it's not a Biden administration or a soon-to-be thereafter Biden follow-up. But Dr. Fauci just announced that he will retire before the next president takes office. What are your thoughts, and will he have a career as a pundit on some liberal news talk show? Boomer, you first.
Oh,
bud.
thank you, because I actually would like to start on this one.
Okay.
Praise God he's leaving, because I just personally think he's a joke every time he gets on. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, he probably is going to be on some news source talking and providing his expertise, if you say that.
Is he going to be like Fox's Dr. Mark Siegel, but that's the opposite, like the evil Mark Siegel? Is that what's going to happen?
That's probably what's going to happen. Yeah, so I'm just happy that it's actually going to. He will be gone.
I can't. Well, I tell you what. Before I tender my opinions, let me go ahead and just jump in there with Birdman. Birdman, your thoughts, Fauci?
Yeah, I mean, his claim to fame came from him being a subject matter expert in a time that had millions of people in a panic, and people wanted updates on it. So I understood that from that point, and frankly, looking back, I understand it now. However, let's call what it is. He's not a pleasant voice to listen to.
No.
He's not interesting to listen to. He's hard to follow, and I think that alone is going to take him out of that. But also, people just don't want to hear him speak in that realm. Now, he could definitely MSNBC, CNN. I don't even think CNN would bring him, honestly. I think MSNBC is the only one that would actually bring him as a pundit, but I honestly think his chances are pretty low. Now, he is a smart guy. He is a subject matter expert on this kind of thing. But it also depends on how long this administration is going to keep drawing out this unnecessary fear into people about things they should not be afraid of. That's what's making him famous.
Well, they're already talking about the next variant that might shut things down. And Los Angeles, Charlene pointed out this morning that Los Angeles is talking about a new mask mandate.
And it's already happening here. It's already happening in Huntsville.
In Huntsville?
I'm not going to get into a bunch of details, but in North Alabama, yes, there are places in Madison County that it is absolutely becoming a thing.
Wait, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and guess. I'm going to lay out a guess. I'm going to say UAH is one of those considering it.
Actually, I have been calling that for a while. I'm surprised they haven't already.
Wow. No. How about just no? How about some amazing civil disobedience like I am not wearing a mask unless I feel like wearing a mask, but not because you told me I had to wear a mask. I'm just
took in the first place.
Yeah. Boomer, what are you thinking?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and by the way, it's one thing to say you got to wear pants. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Boomer, would you please wear pants tomorrow?
I'll wear pants.
but there are limits to what can be said, and there's been studies that have shown that there is zero efficacy in the mask wearing, and so the idea that you have to put on a mask of any kind, just that face diaper to make other people feel better, it's not working.
Right.
All right.
It's the fact of making other people feel better. That's what I don't like.
Okay, so leaving the Fauci thing, let me just ask this: how long after he leaves? Now the dude's not young, but he's been in public service for 50 years. He is currently apparently the highest paid public servant in the entire United States. He has a salary of somewhere in the neighborhood of like $653,000 a year or something like that, as a public servant. But let me ask it to you this way: how long after he leaves before he makes appearances as a contributing editor, getting paid for his time on a liberal talk show? Boomer, how long will it take after he leaves office?
I would say, actually, I don't know. I would just be guessing. On a talk show? I'm
gonna write it down. You name it. Is it 1 month, 3 months?
I'm gonna say about between 6 and 7 months.
So 6 to 7 months, according to the Boomer. Birdman, what are you thinking?
Probably,
If that actually were to happen,
yeah.
I'm giving it 3 to 6 months, and the only reason I say that is that's the perfect time to go in and rag on the next administration if it is a Republican administration. I think that would be a perfect way for him to just jump in for the clout, honestly.
That would be. I'm going to go ahead and say he's probably going to pull a total Jen Psaki and have his contract signed before he leaves his position.
Ooh.
And he's going to step out of one, take a 2-week vacation to the Keys, and then come back and put on a mask and step into a studio. That's what I'm going to say. I'm just saying. I'm saying no delay. Fauci has proven himself to love the public arena. So we'll see what happens. All right. Good enough, fellas. Round 1 of Boomer and the Birdman. Go ahead, Kelsey, take us to a break. And by the way, I forgot to play the whoop whoop. Oh, my gosh. All right, Kelsey, get the whoop whoop ready. When we get back, we got it. I know, it is tragic. We're going to fix that when we get back. All right, folks. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're doing Boomer and the Birdman. When we get back from this break, we'll wrap that up. And we'll start it off with the appropriate whoop whoop because we forgot to do that on the way in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, covering all of North Alabama. Hey, listen, we're doing a segment right now. We call it Boomer and the Birdman. So these two guys, they're part of what makes this show work. They just do an amazing job. I mean, I could not imagine having to do this without their help. And what they provide every single day is an invaluable service. Anyway, all that to say, they also got great opinions and they share them. But hey, Kelsey, we forgot a minute ago to intro this with the right sound effect. I mean, all these regular segments that we do have a sound effect, like the Triple Dipper and the Grand Council. And oh, by the way, when we do Copper and the Birdman or Boomer and the Birdman, we got to play the whoop whoop. So, Kelsey, if you got it, hit it. Nice. That's the way it's supposed to have been done. All right. Okay, Birdman, you still there? Do I have a?
Still here.
All right, good. All right, here we go. Switching gears on you, politics. You ready? Give me y'all's thoughts. I don't know if you've surveyed anybody or just have your own opinion. Doesn't matter to me. No right, no wrong. But here's the deal: Trump endorsements may or may not have helped in the Alabama Senate primary. I mean, we saw where he unendorsed Mo Brooks, then he went and endorsed Katie Britt right at the very last minute. But because of when he endorsed Katie Britt, some would say it did have an impact, but she was already leading, pretty exponentially. So it makes you wonder, was it just him jumping on board? I don't know. So what we're seeing, though, is in some states, his endorsement does still carry weight. But like what we're seeing right now in Georgia, Governor Kemp's running for re-election, and he prevailed over the Trump-endorsed candidate. So what are your thoughts? Is a Trump endorsement still the big-ticket item that it used to be? Birdman, you first.
It depends on the state. I feel like when Trump was throwing out endorsements in Alabama, it was received differently. Especially, I don't know, Georgia's been going off the deep end lately with some of the ways that they're handling their politics. I don't know. Some of the stuff that you're seeing coming out of the Democratic Party in Georgia, I don't know. It held weight here in Alabama, at least for a time. I think when he dropped his original endorsement, things started to kind of get sketchy because I think from a national point of view, people looked at that and went, well, if he's going to endorse somebody and then just drop it right after, he's flighty. Why would we go? I feel like it may just seem unsteady to people. And I think it just is a bad look now in some cases. But I also think it heavily depends on the state.
Okay, so how about you personally? If there's a let's say for instance that Trump decides not to run for president, which all the indications are that he is, but if he decides not to run for president and he endorses one of the other presidential candidates instead, would that carry weight with you or no?
No. I really don't. I don't really care too much about endorsements because I prefer to spend a lot of time digging into each candidate that I'm considering myself. And I don't really like being told who to vote for. And I know that sounds very stubborn, but in a lot of cases, a lot of people who give out endorsements are saying, we stand for them and you should too. And that's a great rah-rah speech, but I don't really care what people have to say. And I want to learn it myself. And I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I get it. So, Boomer, what do you think, man? Trump endorsement, does it still carry weight or no?
Well, can I start with this? I think endorsements are for people that aren't doing their due diligence and figuring it out for themselves.
Well, yeah, sometimes that can be the case. They look around. What do you think?
Which is fine. I mean,
it becomes a "what do you think" kind of thing, as opposed to "this is what I think."
Right.
But endorsements do help sometimes.
They do. Absolutely. I agree with that. But with the fact of with Trump in Alabama, when he backed out of the first one, that was. I think that's just put some people in the nation just uneasy, like wishy-washy. That's what they felt, that's how maybe I looked at it, as a, just a citizen.
I felt like it was overly fickle. I mean, it's one thing to even drop the endorsement, but to then endorse the opponent of the person you had just endorsed prior, that felt extremely fickle to me.
Right, and after doing a little bit of, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
After doing a little research, I mean, it just on it is like, do past presidents or whoever's doing the endorsing, do they tend to always endorse the people that they know is going to win? I mean, that's what I read a little bit about. I mean, I don't know if that's always the case. But.
Well, in Trump right now, there's been some thought that the endorsement of Katie Britt was, he may have liked Katie Britt. She's a very likable candidate, but then again, he may have also been strap hanging because at that point she was polling so far ahead that he was almost assured to be able to put her in his win column. So I don't know. I got mixed feelings. I think that if we had a field of presidential candidates and one of them was leaning towards Trump policies, I would want to know what he thinks. But in the end, I agree with both of y'all. You have to do your own research and feel comfortable with who you're voting for. So there's that. All right, listen, we only got about 2.5 minutes left. So this is my favorite part of doing this is what I call stupidest story of the week. All right, stupidest story of the week. Boomer, you first. You guys always find stuff that I didn't see in all the research I do, but what is your stupidest story of the week?
All right, I'll go really quick. I found this. It is a 53-year-old man in the U.S. sets a record for pushing a peanut up a mountain using his nose.
Why? Why would anybody push a peanut up a mountain using what is the point in this?
I don't know. He just wanted to set the world record. It's in Colorado, and it went up Pikes
There's some
Peak.
serious. He went up Pikes Peak pushing
Peak.
a peanut with his nose.
Yep, peanut with his nose.
How long did it take him to do this?
I would actually have to do a little bit more research on that because I didn't get that
So
far.
you just found the headline.
Well, I found the headline and I read the article, but it doesn't tell me how far. how long it
Don't
took.
you be an old headline reader on this
I
show,
know.
Boomer.
I'm watching.
All right. Oh man. All right. So Birdman, you got to top that one. What do you think? Stupidest story of the week. Can you beat that?
I'm gonna try. Okay, so this is probably just gonna make you mad, but
Okay.
here we go. So the CDC has
Oh,
launched a new
Lord.
QChat space program. It's
Q-
called the QChat space.
Okay.
It's aimed at LGBTQ lifestyles, specifically for 13 to 19-year-olds.
What?
This is straight up grooming. This is straight up federally funded grooming, and I'm just going to be straight with you because they are talking about stuff.
Is that a pun? You're gonna be straight with me? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But, no, you're good. But it's talking about it's a private chat for tarot cards and astrology
What?
and sex change operations.
The CDC?
Government officials.
And this
CDC.
with our taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
Lord. All right. Well, you have the most maddening story of the week, that's for sure. All right, guys. Love you both. Appreciate you. Thanks for what you do. All right, folks, for those of you in the Birmingham market right now on our Crawford affiliates, you're going to be going straight to Priority Talk with my friend Greg Davis. Those of you guys at Cumulus with WVNN up in Huntsville, hang around. We'll be right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned.
Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here, yes, indeed, from the Rightside studio. And wait, the dude just said we are solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, listen, thanks for hanging on. We've got hour 3 already, which is hard to believe, man. This show is flying by. But in hour 3, I'm going to number 2 on the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it Pain at the Pump is the Point. Yes, apparently it is. And I'm not the only one saying that. The pain you're feeling at the pump is actually the point that the Biden administration is trying to create. Now, when I say that, don't think for a second that I'm saying there are not others who are somewhat complicit in what we're doing. I mean, keep in mind, I'm still irritated that our state legislature chose to enact a new gas tax, and they have no desire to see that frozen. So 10 cents on the dollar right now that you're experiencing, with the average price of gas being about $4.09 a gallon in Alabama, you could be under $4 if it weren't for the new gas tax that we're paying. For every gallon, you pay another 10 cents on top of the 18 cents we already pay before they raise the tax. Now, aren't we seeing lots of new asphalt? Well, sure we are. But it's also interesting to see this new gas tax is not only exponential, it's also perpetual, meaning that it never ends. Every 2 years, it can go up another penny. Just without any legislative action, just go up another penny. And, really in 20 years, you could be paying 20 more cents. I say 20 years. 20 years from the time it's enacted, you could be paying another, 10? Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. This could keep on going to the point that you're like California at some point. Let's hope not. Nonetheless, here we are. And the real culprits, though, truthfully, are the Biden administration. The green energy executives and bureaucrats surrounding Biden in the White House and within the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation are literally pushing for an agenda right now. And it's kind of like we talked about earlier when Sparky called in. There is a desperation right now to see how much they can get done. So it's I watch this happening. I'm thinking they have no governor right now. When I say governor, I'm talking about the governor like the kind that slows things down, like the governor on an engine. They have no governor right now. There's no moderation, if you will, on what they're attempting to do. Well, in the middle of all that, we have our Secretary of Transportation. Would somebody please tell me how Pete Buttigieg became the Secretary of Transportation? How was he a viable pick other than the fact that he checked a few blocks? He is, he's young and he's openly homosexual. Let's make him the Department of Transportation Secretary. I guess. I mean, well, he was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. What does that even mean? How does that equate? I mean, some people would say that his time as the mayor of South Bend, Indiana was not that spectacular. And yet he chose to run for president, which I still look back and go, that was some nerve, man. How did that even happen? Well, so Pete Buttigieg did an interview this past weekend. Was this weekend? Yeah, it was Thursday. So looking at a story, this one came from Fox. I've got a mix of stories from Fox, AP. What else have I got in here? National Review, Reuters. But I'm looking at this one, leading off with it. Title of it, dated Sunday. I think it went out, dated Saturday. Amid high gas prices, Pete Buttigieg slammed for telling Americans to switch to electric cars. Okay, so here's the deal. This is the pain at the pump that you and I are feeling right now. Because you know what? The vast majority of the world still uses fossil fuels, and we're going to for the foreseeable future. And yet the prices have grown. They've doubled since Biden took office. Why? Because of policies he's enacted. There's no getting around it. He doesn't want you to believe that. I inherited a problem. No, you didn't. We were energy independent. Well, I inherited bad policies from Trump. No, you didn't. The policies were working. Well, we were never truly energy independent. Yes, actually we were. Well, the Keystone Pipeline was bad for the environment. No, actually it was fine. It had already gone through all the environmentals and been approved. You just didn't want it because it didn't fit your green energy agenda. So, critics, though, have now heaped scorn, this article says, upon a clip showing Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg excitedly talking about the prospect of, quote, most Americans switching to electric vehicles. Dude, so what they're doing is they're saying because the prices are high, it's going to help you want to get onto electric vehicles because then you won't have to pay for gas. Hey, this will be cool. All right, so during a short clip that was taken from an interview he did on a radio show called Big Boy TV, Buttigieg discussed how the U.S. government is looking to cut the cost of electric vehicles. They're going to try and drive the market to reduce the cost of vehicles. So basically, the government's going to get into the free market, make it less free, so those who create electric vehicles will just have to lower their prices. We demand you lower your prices. How do we stay in business, sir? I don't understand. What are you asking me? Sir, you've obviously never run a business before. What does that mean? It means we can't do that and stay open. All right? What that basically means is electric vehicles have not totally become viable in terms of what the average Joe and Jane can afford to do. But all smiles, it says. Buttigieg claimed, we're for cutting the cost of electric vehicles because when you have an electric vehicle, then you're also going to be able to save on gas. But you've got to be able to afford it in the first place. Thank you, Doogie Howser. You are correct. Buttigieg continued, now we're actually starting to see some models where the costs come to where even if your car payment's a little higher, your gas payment will be a little lower, and you come out ahead. What? I know, Boomer. It boggles my mind. So the official Twitter account of the Republican Party seized on this, and here's what they put out. They said, don't forget, with the Biden administration, the pain is the point. Yes, my point exactly. That the pain at the pump is the point. Because what they're hoping is that you'll say, man, I wish I had me an electric vehicle because then I could just plug it in and I wouldn't have no cost of gas. And you know what? And I get it in some applications that might be reasonable. Charlene and I took a trip to Savannah for our 35th anniversary last year. And while we were down there, we got an Uber. And the guy pulls up in a Tesla. And I said, oh, this is cool. I've never ridden in a Tesla before. It was smooth. It was quiet. This is not like an ad for Tesla, but what I'm saying is it was impressive. And I asked him, I said, so what's the deal? You use this every night? Yeah. I just keep it charged up. He said, I get about 3 days worth of work out of it. But all he's doing is driving around town. He's never far from the charging station. What if you have to take a business trip? What if I wanted to go see, my son and daughter-in-law and grandkids who live out of state? What if we want to take a trip to the beach? What if we want to drive back to Savannah in our electric vehicle? Will we make it? It's a 6 to 7 hour drive. And the odds are you might not. Well, but Buttigieg doesn't care. So businessman and burn rate CEO Robert McLaws made several crucial points in response to Buttigieg's clip. He says, number one, imagine the Texas grid problems if they went 100% electric vehicles. What he's saying there is, yeah, you know what? You got to plug that thing in at night and charge up. Did you know that in California, they're already asking people to stop charging their vehicles at night because of the strain on the grid? What do you want them to do? We want you to have an electric vehicle, but we need you to not charge it, please. Well, that's called a doorstop. That's called a brick. I could just go ahead and take that and use it as the foundation for my house and build on top of it because that's all it's worth to me at that point. It's a hunk of steel. All right. He makes the next point. Without nuclear, where is this electricity going to come from? Answer, coal. That's the only way. And we had a great caller here on the show. I still remember this. He called in, about a month ago, and he made the point that he's an expert in the industry, and he said that it turns out that the average electric vehicle is charging in this area under a TVA in TVA, Alabama Power TVA. They split part of the state. North Alabama, a big chunk of it has TVA. TVA is largely coal fired. In order to plug in your vehicle at night, which is when the grid is usually at its calmest because people are not as hot during the night or whatever else. Anyway. He made the point. To ramp up the grid to charge all those vehicles, each vehicle would take an average of 63 pounds of coal per night burned to charge the vehicle. When you put it like that, you realize, okay, how green are green vehicles? Because somehow or another they have to get charged. So unless it's nuclear, this guy points out, it's going to be an issue. According to the green agenda, you can't charge it because it's coal. All right. Anyway, and then he says, And how do people buy electric cars when insane inflation means they can't even afford their food or housing? Good point. Keep in mind, this is the same booty judge, by the way, who just recently visited Birmingham, Alabama. Story here on AP News to remind us, dating back to June 30th. He was here in Alabama. Congresswoman Terry Sewell, the only Democrat, well, just about the only Democrat, but the only Democrat in Alabama as a part of our U.S. delegation, met with him, hosted him, was glad to have him here as he came here to Alabama to talk about building racial equity in the way that we build roads, because that obviously is where our money needs to go. But he does have $1 billion to help take the stress of racial equity off of road building. Well, listen, I'm going to get into this a little more when we get back from the break. But right now, I got to tell you, White House economic advisors, they don't sound very solid. Like, I read their comments, and I'm thinking that's a whole lot of nothing. But, Kelsey, you go and move us to a break, man. But listen, when we get back to, I'll also tell you, what happened to a Florida family when they drove their electric car and the battery had to get replaced? Oh, man, it wasn't pretty. And then what did happen when Biden went to Saudi Arabia? Did it do any good at all? Did the Saudis greet him with open arms and say thanks? Did Biden even go there with any real intent? Or was it all for show? Interesting. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. are back, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid conservative and just plain right. Time now 4:22-ish. Yeah, 4:22. Right here in the Rightside studio, we got the big digital clock on the wall that tells me it is 4:22. If I would look at it next time, I would be able to say that with confidence. Hey, so we're talking about gas prices. The title of this section of the Triple Dipper is "The Pain at the Pump is the Point." They want the pain at the pump. I'm sure they're somewhat chagrined by the fact that, luckily for most of us, gas prices have been dipping down a little bit over the last 30 days. USA Today reports that gas prices have been dipping for the last 30 consecutive days, which is a plus because they were at epic highs, like not seen in 40-year highs. And so here's the deal. States with the least expensive gas right now, South Carolina is the least expensive with $4.08. Then Georgia, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, all tied roughly. Alabama's right in there. Our current, as of today, now that story, by the way, came out USA Today July 15th, so that would have been what? Friday. It would have been Friday. So as of Friday, South Carolina led the pack with $4.08.6. And right now, today, Alabama is sitting there, according to AAA.com, at $4.09.3 for a gallon of regular. So South Carolina barely beats us, but we're right up. We're right in there with the lowest in the nation, and I'm glad to hear it. The highest in the nation, you can imagine, it's still California. All y'all that podcast the show out in California, just know that we are paying literally $1.87 less per gallon than y'all are. And it makes no sense. That means you've been taxed and regulated into another $1.87 that the rest of the nation is not having to pay. Yeah, okay. $5 and did I do the math right? I might be a little off, but nonetheless, $5.95.3 in California for a gallon of regular. Now, sometimes I look at the people that are now in charge of making decisions every day that deal with the regulatory authorities in the various states across the United States. And Fox News has a story dated July 14th, last Thursday. So White House economic advisor Heather Boushey, how do you pronounce it? Boushey, said that President Biden is focusing on a green energy transition because of inflation. She said on CNN. He's focusing on green energy because of inflation. Okay. During her appearance, it says, Boushey discussed inflation and the economic struggles it has created for Americans. She did not mention that Biden's environmental economic policies have helped increase prices and fan the flames of inflation. Yeah, that's what happens. When you make everything more difficult to get, when you enforce laws that your environmental or your green energy systems are not ready to sustain, you look at it and go, okay, we can't do that yet, and if we do, it's going to cost more. But we're doing it to help inflation. No, not really. So here's a quote. You ready? I mean, this is a rocket surgeon. Go ahead and try to decipher this. She says, overall, what we see is this global trend towards higher prices, and you see many countries that are reaching record peaks like the United States. And again, it is because in large part right now because of this energy crisis. What? That's a whole lot of nothing. Overall, what we see is a global trend towards higher prices, and you see many countries that are reaching record peaks. It's because in large part right now because of the energy crisis. Well, thank you. Like no one could figure out that when you make it harder to fuel the trucks that take the goods to market, that it might cost more? Did she have a solution? Well, the solution, she says, is figuring out ways to contain the crisis in energy, and for countries like the United States and Europe, of course, taking concrete steps to wean ourselves off these global oil markets because that's what's making all these economies so vulnerable right now. No, it's actually not. What's making us vulnerable is the fact that you're trying to wean us off of something that we have to have under current conditions. Biden has previously pointed out, according to the article, and I agree, he has, I've heard him say it, Biden previously has called inflation an opportunity to make a green transition in the economy. Well, and so did Buttigieg, and so apparently does Heather Boushey, an economic advisor for the White House. Now, what happens when you do get one of these electric vehicles? Not always, by the way, not always. I told you about the Uber driver who's making, a killing. He doesn't have to refuel every night. I get it. There are places where an EV might work, and there's some hybrids that are they're mixed between combustion engines and electric drive. But there are aspects of that are not sustainable. Here's a story that came off Fox, dated yesterday. Florida family drives into electric car problem. A replacement battery costs more than the vehicle itself. That's a heck of a thing. I mean, I get it. I've had a friend who bought a car one time and got a lemon, and it turns out the engine was bad, and she had to have an entire new engine put in her vehicle. Luckily, she had a warranty to go with. But in this case, it says a family in Florida drove into a major problem after buying a used electric vehicle. The replacement battery for their dead car wound up costing more than the used car was purchased for. Avery Sawinski is a 17-year-old whose parents spent $11,000 on a used Ford Focus electric car, which is a 2014 model, had about 60,000 miles on it when it was bought. She had it for roughly 6 months, and then it began giving her issues with the dashboard flashing symbols. She says it was fine at first. I loved it. It was small and quiet and cute, and all of a sudden it stopped working. It turns out the car battery would need to be replaced. The problem? The car cost $11,000 used when they bought it. A replacement battery is $14,000. Boomer, $14,000 for the battery replacement. I had no idea. I mean, they're going to have to bring... You know how it is. Engines have to get replaced once in a while. Brakes go out. New tires, whatever the case. You don't expect that the thing that makes it run is going to literally cost $14,000. You can put a new engine in like an entire stable full of vehicles. $14,000. Says the family also found out, though, there weren't any batteries of that type available because that Ford model has been discontinued. So apparently, unlike most vehicles where you can find a means of getting an engine, replacing an engine, finding a replacement type engine, even mounting one that wasn't normally in that car, that doesn't work in this electric vehicle. Not at all. Hey, guys, you want to call in? I'd love to hear from you. 866-494-9866. Call in. Tell me what you think about anything we've talked about today. Right now, we're doing green energy. The pain at the pump is the point. I want to hear your thoughts. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. We'll be right back. And we are back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams live here from the Rightside studio. A local, state, national. We got all the issues, man. All the issues. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, if you want to call in, we'll take those calls. 866-494-9866. Love to hear your thoughts on anything we've covered today so far. We talked about the Title IX rebuff, where the courts have intervened and said, no, Biden administration, we're going to put an injunction upon your ability to say that transgenders can participate in school sports opposite their gender, their biological gender. Or how about this one? We talked about pain at the pump is the point. I'm still in that one right now. I got a caller on line. Hey, it's Allie from Athens. Hey, Allie, how you doing today?
I am doing well, Colonel. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. What's going on?
Well, I was gonna call this little segment "Love for the Luddite," and I'll explain what I mean. It is amusing to me to watch the change that has moved toward virtue signaling as it pertains to the green movement in general. I was a junior in high school in 1970 when the very first Earth Day was celebrated. And I'm a native of Seattle. I've been here in Alabama since 2000, except for, as you know, 3 years off for good behavior in Baghdad. But back in the beginning, when it was still Woodstock and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden, there was absolutely no tolerance for the use of electricity at all. And so, for example, in Seattle, which is built on 7 very steep hills, there was a Seattle City Councilman who went on to become a King County councilman by the name of Tim Hill. And he virtue signaled and made his point. He was a progressive Republican, and he made his point about reducing the use of power by riding his bike to work and to the city council meetings. And it was 9 miles each way. So the guy was actually in Seattle Lane. He was biking, pedaling, and I don't mean anything of his power other than human power. He was biking for 18 miles. And so the point at the time was that the only okay type of power to use was that which was completely off-grid, wood. But then you had to deal with the pollution of wood. And there would have been no tolerance for what we are talking about now, finding ways to increase electrical power so that we can charge our tablets and charge our cars and charge. It was like, no, if somebody had proposed that, they would not have been seen as someone who was part of the quote-unquote Green New Deal.
I totally agree. I mean, Allie, I saw one just the other day. It was a video clip of some local officials somewhere that were putting charging stations in front of City Hall, and one of the reporters said, where's the charge for the charging station coming from? And they looked at him like he was just crazy. They didn't know what he meant. He said, I mean, what's your power source to bring the energy to the charging station? And he pointed out, it's a coal-fired plant. And they had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey.
Anyway, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
I'm saying. Allie, thank you so much. Appreciate you, as always, being in the audience. All right, have a great day. I got 2 more callers. Let me grab those. Which one's first? Let's see. Line 3. Oh, yeah, line 3. David from Ardmore. Hey, David, Phil Williams. How you doing today?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind, man?
One thing they always keep missing in all these green people is that plastics. I mean, like 95 to 99% of plastics are made from fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So, and like a Tesla car right now, 1,300 pounds of that car is plastic.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and all those little clear plastic water bottles that everybody's got to hydrate with now, that of course, they used to drink water 50 years ago, but they didn't have little white, clear plastic bottles. But they're missing the point there, where you can't get rid of fossil fuels. The only way you can do that is to get rid of plastics.
Yeah, and they're also forgetting, by the way, the fact that the batteries themselves. What is it? What's the major component of batteries? They're having to strip mine China right now for it.
Lithium.
Yeah, lithium. Thank you. I had a
Lithium.
brain cramp. But yeah, lithium is being strip mined in China, which has an amazing impact on the environment. But you know what? Got to have it to be green, I guess, huh?
Well, that's why you want to conquer other territories.
World
You gotta find
domination.
some place for your gazillions of people to live. Oh, there's the Philippines. They have some islands, and there's Vietnam. We don't really like them as much as we thought, and we got to do something about Australia because they're kind of standing in our way. And I don't. And also they're encroaching in South and Central America.
This is where the this is where the
bases down there.
This is where the beginning of the original Mad Max movie said things went bad. All right, man. Hey, David, thanks for the call, man. You're spot on, brother. I got another call I got to take real quick before we run out of time. Line 4, Mark from Owens Crossroads. Mark, how you doing today?
I'm well, Phil. Hi.
Hi. How you doing, sir? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Listen, man, this is a classic case of putting the cart before the horse. Back in the day when big screen TVs were all the rave, hell, I wanted one, but I couldn't afford it. Price in capitalism took over, and now everybody can get a big screen TV. So we're not there yet with what the Green Deal wants to do.
Yeah.
Everybody would love to not have to pay for gas, but as pointed out before, the lithium, everything that goes into it, the price point, and the price point is key here. Until it is economically feasible to go there, then we just cannot make this shift. So whenever the Green Deal is all pushing for all electric, no fossil fuels, then I always have to think there's an agenda. And whenever there's an agenda, I think there needs to be more emphasis on following the money. Because people don't just want this agenda when we've already pointed out on your show that it's not really a Green Deal like the advertisement says.
Yeah, you're exactly
More
right.
than that, it is a pure agenda, and I think we need to investigate on following the money on that.
You are exactly right. In fact, when I was a state senator, we had a big issue with a wind farm that was trying to locate in my district, and they were the most irresponsible group of people I'd ever come across. We had to really wrestle with them. They hired like 6 lobbying firms to go against the effort that we had just to protect the local citizens from what they were trying to do. And in the midst of it all, I'll never forget my friend Barry Moore, who's now a congressman for South Alabama. He asked him, he said, I want to know this right now. Could you build and sustain these wind farms if you didn't have government subsidies? And the guy looked at him, and he was honest. He goes, well, no, sir, we couldn't. He goes, so you're not self-sufficient. You're not in the free market. You're being sustained by government action, and that's it. So, yeah, that's you are exactly right. Mark, hey, thanks for the call. We appreciate you. And thanks for calling in. All right, listen, so within this whole context, though, you remember Biden made his trip to Saudi Arabia. All right, so the pain at the pump is the point. Well, Biden was allegedly going to Saudi Arabia to ask them to increase their oil production. Well, what happened when he got there? National Review had something that I hadn't seen anywhere else. This was what I would call a deep dive. You look at it and think, okay, so, all right, Biden doesn't want to drill here, but it's okay to drill there. Tell me why that makes sense. We can dirty the environment here or dirty the environment there, I guess. In this case, he wants to dirty the environment there. Okay. If you're really out to save the world, then what are you really doing, President Biden? But anyway, so the Biden administration, the president himself, went on a trip to Saudi Arabia. There was all the stuff about fist bumping with Mohammed bin Salman in his first meeting with President Biden, and whether or not that was the appropriate way to greet another head of state. And then here's the thing. The Saudis are known for protocol, and they had sitting right next to Mohammed bin Salman, MBS they called him in the press a lot, they had the very prominent placement of Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, and that was not an accident. The article in National Review that I've got was dated July 17th. That'd be yesterday. It's called Biden's Missed Opportunity in Saudi Arabia on Energy. It says that Abdulaziz is the half-brother of MBS. He's also the first member of the royal family to have been appointed as the Minister of Energy. He is their Minister of Energy. He is the man in the country when it comes to production. He oversees all of it. In the American delegation across the table, it says, however, there was no equivalent official. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm did not even make the trip. This is considered to be a diplomatic faux pas because what it signaled was we were not there to make joint energy production decisions. We were there as a consumer because what they brought was a diplomat. They brought, who was the guy they brought? Special Envoy, State Department Special Envoy for International Energy Affairs, Amos Hochstein. So Hochstein was the guy. Not the Department of Energy's secretary, Jennifer Granholm, like was sitting across the table on the Saudi side. So here's the conclusion from National Review. There appears to be scant, if any, Biden administration interest in pursuing the more serious discussions of high-level coordination on energy policy between America and Saudi Arabia, two of the world's energy superpowers, as what took place during the Trump administration. It says such coordination, among other things, are what took Iranian oil almost entirely off the market without barely a blip in our prices. But this time, while Abdulaziz was front and center and ready to talk business, the Americans didn't even bring anyone appropriate to the meeting. Tells you a lot right there. We were there as consumers. We were there asking for more stuff. We were not there to help make joint decisions affecting energy policy around the world. Well, the Saudi crown prince, came out later and said that unrealistic energy policies will lead to higher inflation, counter to the entire thing that I told you that Boucher from the Biden administration said. We literally have in Reuters, July 16th, after this really, kind of faux pas diplomatic meeting where we went as consumers. So Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said on Saturday that more investment was needed in fossil fuel. Well, of course, they have a vested interest in that. And clean energy technologies to meet global demand, and that unrealistic emissions policies will lead to unprecedented levels of inflation. Here's the quote. You ready? Adopting unrealistic policies to reduce emissions by excluding main sources of energy will lead in coming years to unprecedented inflation and an increase in energy prices and rising unemployment and a worsening of serious social and security problems. But I thought that global warming, I thought that green energy was the savior of the environment. I thought that we had to go down those roads. Well, you know what? I tend to agree in this case with Prince Mohammed. I tend to agree that adopting unrealistic, as he calls them, policies to reduce emissions is going to do nothing but drive up costs, increase inflation, lower employment, and cause havoc around the world. Yet that's who's in charge. All right, I tell you what, let's go ahead and take the last break of the day. Kelsey, move us to a break. We will do that. Be right back and wrap it up. You want to call in? I got time for one or two. 866-494-9866. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid conservative and just plain right. So if you want to call in, I got a few minutes left. We can do that. 866-494-9866. That's 866-494-9866, which, by the way, will be changing soon. We have, as the tech begins to come more and more online at the new Rightside studio, we have our own toll-free number that we'll be putting out there to you guys here very soon. And just know this: we got a lot of stuff going on right now. We are actually live streaming the show. I said it right this time, Boomer. We're live streaming. Thumbs up from Boomer. We're live streaming the show right now. I can see myself on the screen, and I'm thinking I need to lose weight. But anyway, nonetheless, I can see myself on the screen because we're live streaming the show daily. You can watch it there at rightsideradio.org. You can also, by the way, read our weekly op-eds. We got podcasts that are just kicking right now. People also email the show, and I just got an email here from Chris, and I don't know if where Chris is from in the listening area, but Chris says, "Hey Phil, love listening to your show. Thanks for all you do, lifting up conservative values." Going back to that transgender stuff that we had in the first part of the show, he says, "With all the transgender stuff going on, I'm wondering if a person can be transracial." Interesting, Chris. Can you be transracial? In other words, if you can change something as intrinsic as gender, why not your race? And then he points out that, remember Rachel Dolezal? Remember that? Rachel Dolezal was a key leader in the NAACP who was posing as a black person and had done everything she could to change her appearance to appear as if she was a black person when in fact she was not. And she was dismissed because she was seen as, trying to co-opt something that she was not. But he makes the point, this would totally flip the script on the left's hypocrisy. It would destroy their efforts to classify and rank people based on race if we could just say, I'm sorry, no, I don't have white privilege. I identify as, take your pick. Which one am I today? Today I am Black Phil. Tomorrow I am Asian Phil. How about this? I intend to be hybrid interracial Phil. They're so intent upon what we call intersectionality. By the way, Chris, great email. Thank you. Good point. I should compliment that first before I start rambling on. But yeah, Chris, thanks for the email. Y'all keep them coming. But he's right. I mean, if you can co-opt something that's so intrinsic to your identity as your gender, then who's to say you can't just go ahead and go the rest of the route and say, you know what, today I'm a different race. What do you think of me now? Well, it doesn't work that way. In fact, I did a whole segment the other day called "It Don't Work That Way." So yeah. What else we got going on right now? So, well, we're about done. I got much. So, Boomer, good show, man. This
is a great show.
It was. I mean, it was action packed.
Yes.
In fact, Boomer, just once again, I did not get to number 3 on the Triple Dipper.
It's all right. It's all right.
Is it okay?
It's really good because honestly, we really love. I mean, I'm talking for you too, I guess, but we really love it when people call in and chat about it. I mean, it's awesome to hear other people's opinions.
Well, yeah, it is. But maybe I should call it the Double Dipper from now on.
Double Dipper. Maybe the Triple Dipper. Triple Dipper. Maybe just the double.
Yeah. Do you like 2 scoops or 3? What are we doing today? I don't know. We'll see. I had Bama, I can't even say it now. Bama Bidenomics as number 3 on the Triple Dipper. I've had it since Thursday of last week. Thursday, Friday, and today. It's Monday. It's 3 days in a row. We've had so much going on with people calling in, with good guests, with listeners sending emails and stuff happening that literally we're not even able to get through all the material that we got for the show. But that's okay. I would not have it any other way. So, well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Tomorrow I expect it. You know what? I might do this, Boomer. I might just go ahead and keep that one more day and put it first.
Ooh. Good choice.
Don't. The problem is I keep finding others. Oh, I want to go that one. I'll do that one first.
There's always better ones.
And then Bidenomics winds up being last, and then not get done at all. But what do you do? I'm gonna make it first. It's coming tomorrow.
It's just too good of a show, Phil.
All right, folks. Listen, coming up next, you got the great one, Mark Levin, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be back here tomorrow at 2. You guys have a great night. We'll see you then.